When we say the name Cleopatra or hear the name Cleopatra, we all have an immediate mental image, don't we, of what she looked like. Now, be honest with yourselves. When I say Cleopatra, is this the image that you see? Because if I am honest with myself, oh, it probably is. Or is it this? An authentic Cleopatra in the clothing of ancient Egypt, as seen on one of the few surviving bas-reliefs of her? Well, we know that the first image we see here is inauthentic, fabulously so, but inauthentic. And we know that the second represents soundly what ancient Egyptian women wore. But Cleopatra was at least culturally of Greek descent, so she was a product of Ptolemaic Greek culture and would undoubtedly have dressed as a Macedonian Greek in private life, regardless of whatever her racial origins actually were. She would have worn simple chitons and peplums and hymatians, all the garb of the Greek world. And yet, Cleopatra was a player in the Roman world. And boy, oh boy, what a player in the Roman world she was. And as Rome was the dominant force at the time, she would probably have adopted the clothing of ancient Rome on occasion and worn the palla and the stola worn by every fashionable female patrician. So did Cleopatra ever really dress like an ancient Egyptian as seen in hieroglyphs? Well, guess what? She absolutely did. Cleopatra, the real Cleopatra, chose the Egyptian goddess Isis as her heavenly forebearer. And on ceremonial occasions, she would dress up as Isis in all of this garb to please and appease her Egyptian subjects. So really, the first person who created Cleopatra was Cleopatra herself. She was so hyper aware of her personal image, her brand identity, if you will. But although we'll probably never know the color of her hair or the color of her skin, there is one thing that we're always in agreement upon: her beauty. Cleopatra is always beautiful and always sexually alluring. And where does this idea of Cleopatra being almost unearthly in terms of her astounding beauty and sex appeal come from? Well, ironically, from the Romans. Both contemporaneously and after her death, Roman writers told tales of Cleopatra's staggering fatal beauty, because you see, she had to be beautiful. She had to be almost supernatural in her beauty. Why else, then, would not one, but two of Rome's most powerful men fall prey to her? How could they resist? They were only human after all. And well, when faced with such beauty, it wasn't their fault. They couldn't resist. So Cleopatra's famous beauty was born of a Roman need to explain away just how it was possible for this young woman to have caused so much trouble to them. And this image of Cleopatra being almost supernatural in her beauty has never really left us, has it? She has to be beautiful, which is why she is always portrayed on screen by the most beautiful actresses of every era. And these actresses really were considered the most beautiful women of their day. So, ergo, Cleopatra. I think Greek philosopher Plutarch probably offered up a slightly more realistic take on Cleopatra's beauty. This is what he wrote. Those who had seen Cleopatra knew that neither in youthfulness nor in beauty was she superior to Octavia, that's Mark Antony's wife. For indeed her own beauty, as they say, was in itself not altogether incomparable or such as to strike those who saw her. So beauty-wise, I think he's saying she was fair to middling, yet he does then go on to discuss her cleverness, her cunning, and what we now term sex appeal. Her ability to use all of these qualities to manipulate men. And Shakespeare would use Plutarch's take on Cleopatra as the basis for Antony and Cleopatra, the two writers arguably creating the world's very first 100% femme fatale. They imbued Cleopatra with the exact qualities that every fictional femme fatale of the 20th century relied upon: a mistress of manipulation with questionable morals who could outsmart and outwit and outmaneuver her male victims, using her sexual allure to ensnare him in a trance-like lust before making him do her evil bidding.